Hi, I'm Peter Gould, co-creator and executive producer of Better Call Saul, and this is episode 505.
My name is Jim McKay, and I had the privilege of directing this episode.
My name is Trina Siopy, and I am co-producer on the show.
Hi, my name is Paula del Santo, and I was production designer on this episode.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Banks, and I'm the guy that just came through the doorway. Let's watch this.
Phone?
No. So I've got to say, I'm so happy to have you back, Jim, directing. This is a very unusual episode. How did you approach creating this? Well, actually, let me ask: is this really Mexico?
I'm allowed to say that it's not. It is not. It is. We are in a little village outside of
Santa Fe.
Santa Fe.
Yeah.
I'm about to say Santa Rosa or something like that. Santa Fe. And Trina, you know the name. Can you talk about this place?
Los Calandrinos, right. And I'm probably butchering it, but that's
And when I first read the script, I was incredibly excited at this idea of creating Mexico, and then also the knowing that I was going to have all this time with Jonathan, and it's this kind of quiet episode in terms of this part of it, and for me that was right away. I was just very excited about that idea that we'd be working together in this place on location, and there's just all this kind of atmospheric stuff going on with this guy who wakes up and has no idea where he is.
It was beautiful out here. Just so those chickens were wrangled in the road. They were great chickens. They were fun to watch, I got to tell you. The guy told me he was going to give me a dozen eggs. He never did. I'm a little bitter about the whole thing.
I can talk to him about that for you.
Yeah, well, just remind him. He said a dozen eggs. Never saw an egg.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful out there. You were absolutely right.
Oh, it
beautiful.
Was great. And here comes JB. This actor is, a good guy. He's been on the show before. He's British and a lot of fun.
Now, Trina, this is your first season on the show as a producer, but you've been with Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad for a little while. Is that right?
I have. I've been with the show since season 2 of Breaking Bad as the assistant prop master. Maybe dabbled in a little stunts on the show and other things, but yeah. And so this is the first year that I've moved up to co-producer. Definitely a different role, but back with my favorite people.
I always wanted her to play my daughter, Peter. I've said that before. I always wanted Trina to play my daughter, but
I was ready for it. I think that we could have made it work.
This isn't the last TV show we're going to do. I just remember when we announced to the crew, Trina, that you were going to be you're becoming a producer, moving up to producer. There was just so much applause, and I feel like we got a lot of goodwill from the fact that we brought you in to do this new job, because everybody just loves you, and you just have this wonderful way with people and this great attention to detail.
Thanks.
It's really remarkable.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to even be a part of this family. Everyone is spectacular. Jonathan Banks, we definitely have something special. We've had something special. Our relationship, I have to say, goes back
goes back to season 2 of Breaking Bad. We both came in on season 2. This scene is such a great scam. It's such a good scam.
It's really fun.
This is in what was this little town called? Out in the middle of nowhere.
It's Belen, New Mexico.
Belen, thank you, Paula.
We sort of went 30 miles south of Albuquerque, 40 miles north of Albuquerque. So we were sort of all over the place with this one. And you really get an idea of what, how different New Mexico can be just traveling within 60 miles and you're in a totally different setting.
Can we talk about weather here for a second?
Well, I will say though, this is one of my favorite moments of the episode is when Barry Corbin makes his entrance here. This is so tricky, the comedy here, but Barry is just hilarious. He's hilarious. I love every scene that he's in on the show. We were very lucky to get him.
Yeah, Barry is, yes, what a good actor he is.
Jim, what were you going to say about the weather?
Well, if you look right back here, it storms back there. It's incredibly stormy. You look in this direction, it's actually, there's some sun, there's some blue sky. This was a day where I think we spent 2 to 3 hours in the house that Barry's character was staying in because of lightning strikes and storms coming around. We just had to keep shutting down. And I think just the fact that we actually shot this, but it's interesting because I was worried because it looks so different in each direction. The fact is it's actually real. Back behind Bob there, it just looked like it was gonna, just be a tornado any second. And back in the other direction, just, a half hour later, it was completely sunny. And it actually, the truth is, this is reality. So I thought, on set, I was thinking, oh no, this is not gonna match. But turns out that real life doesn't match. So it's fine.
Jim, how many hours was it that day?
I think we did have about 2 to 3 hours of shutdown time, just waiting till we could go. Because every time lightning strikes,
that's not what I'm asking. Did you work
full
for
day?
14, 16 hours?
No, I don't do the 14 thing. No.
Really?
I don't know. I think we might have gone a little long.
12.
I think we went 13.
Yeah,
or something that
maybe
day,
a little over 12.
We got it done.
We got it done.
This was a very difficult episode. I mean, it's interesting. You're talking about time, and there's a great mythology about directors. But I think, Jim, one of the things that a director prizes the most is time. I mean, it's just every moment that you have on the set is precious. You only have so many of them.
Yeah, right.
Louis, can I interrupt?
Such great use of them.
I want to say something just for the audience. So that guy right there is Rex Lynn. Now, Rex Lynn, how did that happen? Is one of the sweetest dudes that ever walked.
Yeah.
He has a little French bulldog, and he's an old Texas boy. So he was down in Texas, and he likes the bull riders, right? And he was at a thing, and he was watching the bull riders, and I guess the guy that owns all the bulls that they rent out for it, the wife is a big fan of the show and Rex. So she goes down, she takes him back there, and they give him a bull. And in the professional bull riding, so when the bulls ride, there is one, and they'll announce the owner in these events. And one of them belongs, so he has a French bulldog and a Brahma bull. I don't know if they're Brahmas, but it's a big damn bull. I can tell you that. And apparently there's a lot of money in that. And there he is, Rex Lynn.
Well, I'd like to see a movie with Jonathan Banks, Rex Lynn, and Barry Corbin.
Oh my God!
I gotta tell you,
might be too much testosterone for the camera to capture.
No, I gotta tell you, if you're in the presence of Barry Corbin, you're walking in his shadow, and Rex and I both would feel that way. Barry is very something.
The attorney on the other side of this matter could get awkward for her.
Is that right, Kim?
This is such a fun scene with Kim putting another one over on these Mesa Verde folks. It's interesting because I used to be and Heather Marion, of course, wrote this episode. Did an outstanding job.
Yeah,
it's really incredible. It's really a fun one.
And we see that Rex is setting the scene with his side sitting in this first scene of the episode, and it'll come back later, won't it?
It sure does. That's actually something that we just observed. We observed that Rex liked to side sit in his scenes, and so we thought it'd be fun. Well, why not have the other characters observe that?
He was tickled when he actually saw it in the script. I remember talking to him about it.
Not an MRI machine I saw back there.
It is. And Frank paid for all this. And all those nights.
Paula, can you talk about this little town? I think when we conceived of this, I thought the interiors were going to be at the studio, but you guys ended up shooting almost everything that's at this town in this town. Is that right?
Before you do that, can we talk about my flat belly? Look at that. That for a man that age. What a sexy dude that is. All right, talk about the little town. Sorry.
Yeah, we love you, Mike. We love you, Jonathan.
I'll try to talk about it, but just seeing his stomach's putting me like, oh my gosh.
I know, got you, didn't it? Huh? Took you away.
This was like a kitchen, wasn't it? It was some sort of kitchen. There was a stove and
yeah. So this, this Los Golondrinas is actually on the Camino Real, which is the royal road that went from Mexico City up past Santa Fe to, I think it's a San Juan Pueblo. So some of these buildings, this one that you're seeing right now, is more contemporary, and it actually is the house of the person, I believe, who's in charge of the museum. And so it was her kitchen, and we made it into, a clinic. Some of the other buildings you will see on this show are from the 1700s. And it is really a great example of New Mexico, early New Mexico architecture, with the vigas and the latias and the adobe walls and windows and the dirt floors. It was a pleasure to work up there, and we were very lucky to be able to get in there. It is a historic monument, and so the building that we did do it within that, it was tricky. So we were lucky to find an area that we could fill in a portal to make the wall where you will see in the future where Jonathan changes out the window. So it all worked out, and it was a pleasure being up there. The staff could not be nicer, and everybody was thrilled to be in nature a little bit.
It was great. And just another thing about JB. JB is a huge voiceover guy. So for the audience, a lot of the cartoons your kids watch and on and on and on, and features JB does a lot of voices. I love being here. This was a joy. It was just a joy.
One of the things that this town was very tricky to figure out how exactly is he just stepping into the past? Is it a working town? And I think Jim, you just have such great taste and such a generosity in your directing that it just feels like a real place, kind of effortlessly.
Thank you.
Then of course here was this fountain, which we spent a lot of time talking about this fountain. And Jim, as I recall, we kept on going back and forth about what it should be. And you brought up Maya Lin, I believe, and her work. And I think that was some of the inspiration for and Maya Lin, of course, the architect who built the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C.
Now, all these kids right here are, they were just kids. And it was so refreshing. And she came back, and I don't know if, Jim, if you use this, but she was so delicate and she was so afraid when she looked at me. And I can't remember. There was one of the kids that came by and slapped me, and we didn't use that take, but he came by and he slapped me, slapped him one on the arm or whatever it was, and he turned around and he stopped and he just grinned, and I thought, they were refreshingly innocent. They really were, those babies. And one of them, the husband had just died, and 2 days earlier, she brought him to the set.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
And this whole sequence is really one of my favorites in the episode. maybe one of my favorites of the season. This interaction between Jimmy and Kim that's coming up. This was actually the scene that we picked to show to the critics as a preview of the season at TCA, and it just killed. The two of them are so funny, and of course, the inimitable Patrick Fabian and Patrick's feet.
I'll try and be quick, but I just want to say something about this scene where, so this scene in the house with Jimmy and Kim, this is a long scene because he's doing his thing on his own. Then he's on the phone. Then Kim comes in. It's a very, very long scene. The shot of Patrick's in his office, and that's a quick shot. Well, when we did the scene that you're watching here with Jimmy, we shot for about 4 or 5 hours, maybe 6. It was long. And Patrick was there on set, out of the way, doing this phone call. And we did this first. So Patrick's there like almost this entire day doing this phone call so that Bob can have the real thing going on the other side of the call. And then the next day we did Patrick's side, and it took about 45 minutes. But Bob was there also. And I tell you, that almost never, ever, ever happens to me on TV shows. And it's what this cast is about and what this production is about, that these are important things. And you don't just have a PA standing off on the side reading lines with no emotion for someone to act with. And I just think it's just, for me as a director, it's a gift. It's a giant gift. And I feel like the actors feel the same.
They have such commitment and attention to detail. They come, I think you'd agree, they come every day knowing their dialogue, having rehearsed the scene, having thought about the scene. And it's just, and exactly what you're saying, Jim, it may sound like a small thing, but actors surprise each other. They may read a line differently each time. And if they're doing their job right, the reaction is different. And it's just, there's no substitute for having a real human being on the other side, even of that phone call.
Exactly.
Over here like this, and he says,
wait, he sits like that?
Yeah, he sits like that.
This is Heather. This is Heather really hitting it out of the park here. We did talk about the scene, as we do with all the scenes. We break them together, but she brought so many little twists and turns to this. And then she has Jimmy becoming Kim, playing Kim too. Not only Kim playing Kevin, but also Jimmy playing. And it just works. And these guys just ran with it. I don't know what else there is to say about that. Maybe Jim. It's a special thing because you land in this episode some serious drama, but also these light moments just work perfectly. They're real, but truly funny.
Yeah.
The goldfish did a great job there too. And
That's true.
Always.
It doesn't always match. Not as good with matching that fish.
Now that I remember, and I talked about Patrick being there for his off-camera lines, I think the last take we did, Rex ran in the room and said, "What are you talking about me like that for?"
Yep.
So that was fun.
I wish we had that
that's great.
for the gag reel.
Yeah. But yeah, Ray just went off here. It was just great.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Kevin?
Yes, Kim?
Now, Paula, you have been also, like Trina, working on the two productions for a little while now. When did you start on Breaking Bad?
So not as long as Trina. I came in on 5A, sorry. The start of the 5th season on Breaking Bad. That's when I started. Yep.
You're such an important part of the group, and that means that you followed all of the. As I was saying that, I'm kind of going back a little bit in my head to the apartment, which has changed so much over the years. But right now, I think we should talk about this scene with Mike. One of the things that strikes me about you, Jonathan, is I don't know. It's a very special kind of acting when you're doing process. There's some. Is there some? Talk about when you have one of these scenes with no dialogue. What are you thinking about, Jonathan?
Well, I will really quick. I just give you this woman though. Before we do that woman, and I can't remember the actress's name,
Alejandra.
but Alejandra has worked with kids with very little means and taught them acting in Los Angeles for years, or not just kids, young people. She was absolutely just a gracious woman. I liked her a lot. Anyhow, working with stuff in your hands, I mean, there's a simplicity, one of my friends said to me one time, nobody was better with objects than Steve McQueen. When he would handle something, that there was attention to the detail and what he was doing. And that's all. It's just that simple. You really try to do it. I mean, Trina knows better than anybody that, I'm all thumbs, and I'm asking her, well, what do I do now? What do I do here? What do I have? But I do try to pay attention to detail, I guess. That's all.
You do. Yeah. The prop department is also amazing. They make sure that everything is broken down, I think, and take the time to show you and the other actors.
Absolutely. And they have a great deal of patience where I'm concerned. They really have and there was a lot of stuff on this table. There was a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember, Jonathan, back on Breaking Bad, one of the last episodes that I did, there was a scene where you had to count out money.
Right.
And I remember a week ahead, you said, guys, we need to rehearse this. You said that to Adam Bernstein, who was directing the episode, and I were standing there. You said, guys, we need to rehearse this. So we got all the piles of money in a trailer, and we went over it. And then on the day, it was just perfect, take for take. And it's thinking ahead. It's caring so much. It's the attention to detail and it's talent.
Well, you're gonna make me be maudlin and sentimental, but look what you've given us to work with, man. And it deserves a little respect. You know what I'm saying? All right, that's enough of that. We're not gonna be.
One of the things my daughter pointed out was how Bob's shirts match. Sometimes they match the vests on the construction workers, and sometimes in this case his shirt's kind of matching the equipment he's in front of. Digger. Now, Jim, I believe this music was your selection.
It was. I think, is this Rebirth Brass Band or Stanton Moore? It's Blackbird
Stanton Moore,
right? Yeah,
that's right.
Great track.
It was interesting. I think you had I think we had to get the track from you because I don't think this was commercially released.
Yeah, I don't know where
we couldn't find it. And,
somewhere in the course of working on Treme, I think I came up with that track, and it was just in my computer, and I always remembered it. Yeah.
Thomas Goldovic, I think, went to some trouble to get the best version he could find, and it is great.
Evan, I'm going to give this one to you.
Validate the grant based on his essentially.
And Jimmy's doing his thing.
It's a montage, which is we have a producer once who said montage is French for overtime. Because you need a lot of pieces. And Jim, what were you thinking about? How did you plan this very intricate stuff?
Just again, I think very similar to Jonathan's little MacGyver-y scene there with the phone. Just there's always the reality of what's written. Okay, can they make this stuff? How toxic is it actually? How many of these little batteries from these things would be needed? At a certain point, they would make these guys keel over. And then, so what's the reality? And then how do we have to show it? How can we show it? And knowing that we're going to chop it to pieces in the montage, which is always fun. And the editing team on this show is so great with that. Usually I get the cut back and immediately it's just shining. And that was the case with this. And that's a little homage as well, Peter, letting the radioactive material out through the pants, right?
That's right. It's from, well, we were thinking about The Great Escape. It's since been drawn to my attention. There are other movies that use that too, but we were thinking about The Great Escape. Speaking of Steve McQueen.
Yes, sir.
Yes. We had a problem.
Kara Pifko's one of my special favorites on this show. I just think she's just great.
They're a great team.
With my very own eyes. That's right. Took them, Carrie. Right off 54. There's plenty of parking. Well.
Oh, Jesus.
Listen, unbelievable. Barry can speak, and it's how long does it take to say those words? Oh my God.
When I look at these extras and the way they're interacting, it feels very Jim McKay to me, I'll say.
Oh my goodness. It was
the
fun.
triplets, those are my favorite. Yeah.
I think that was Richie. I think it was Richie, our first AD, who was just amazing and wrangled all these people and just has so much fun on the job, which certainly helps.
Rich Sickler, yeah, he's just a tremendous assistant director, which it's a job I couldn't even begin to describe, but he is the beating heart of what's going on in the set for sure.
Turns out the radiation level.
And I remember we were talking about this in prep, and I think Jim, you were a little worried that this scene was long, as I recall, and I think we might have lifted a couple lines out before we shot, but I just love it. I just love all the interaction between these people. And by the way, we have Dennis Boutsikaris in this scene too, who is just, he always brings it. It's a murderer's row. It's every single one of these people, really, in a just world, every single one of these people would have their own show.
They know this is costly.
It ain't a just world, pal.
What?
It's not. I don't know how to break this to you.
Uh-oh. I made it this far thinking it was a just world.
We've been pretty lucky.
Yeah, we have.
There were a way to turn this around on them. What if you don't build the call center?
Paula, we have these three different law firms that we've seen on the show. There's HHM, there's Schweikert and Coakley, there's also Davis and Maine. Can you talk about this? This is all a set, isn't it?
Yes, this is all a set. We originally shot this in season 2, I believe, at a building downtown where we were on like the 10th floor. So we sort of recreated this. It came back in season 4, and we took sort of what we shot and added on. It's sort of a different floor, keeping the same heavy woodwork. It goes with what the Schweikert and Coakley look. But this is a fairly large set. It probably took half of one of the stages about. And I think it worked pretty well. I believe so.
I think it works. It's great.
Oh, it's great to shoot in because you can connect all these spaces. You know, in this episode, we have Kim going into her office, coming out. Rich is walking in the hall. Yeah, it's fantastic to shoot.
One of the things that because we have the scripts ahead of time and we think about how the season's going to go, we actually expanded this conference room for season 5. It was a little bit smaller in previous seasons. We asked specifically that the walls be walked out a little bit because we knew we were going to spend so much time in there.
Yeah,
and I can't tell. And speaking of changing walls, I mean this set Kim's apartment. I think this season it might be the same as it was in season 4, but up through season 4, every season there are some serious changes. I don't know. I'm trying to think what they are, Paula. Do you remember?
Yes, because I think it was season 1, possibly season 1. We filmed it in a vacant space next to the nail salon.
Correct.
And it was literally, I'd say a 2-wall set, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, then in a storefront, right? In a storefront in the inn.
Yeah. And so then it moved. The next season, I think it was season 2. We added on. We did the bathroom and the bedroom. I'm not sure how much. I don't think we did the living room. I think we just did those 2. And then season 3, we added on the living room. And then season 4, we made it larger and deeper and added a backing, a very expensive backing.
Right.
And the bathroom, right? In the kitchen.
And the bathroom, the kitchen. Yeah. So season 5, we didn't do anything to it. So
it's so interesting because because it was done so piecemeal, we weren't really sure how it would fit together.
Right.
We used to have Kim's bedroom. She would just open and close, and there'd be close the door. There'd just be a wall there. So we had to figure out what should be outside that door, and why are you seeing just a wall when she's opening and closing her door? It's a fascinating. It's kind of a little bit ass backwards way to do things, but it just shows that we had no idea where the story was going to take us, or that we were going to be spending so much time in this condo.
Yeah.
Jimmy's. I don't think he's really playing a game on Kim here. I will say. I think he's being fairly honest. It's one of the things that became trickier as the seasons went on, because these two know each other so well that the old tropes of just fooling each other and lying just don't seem to work as well as they might have in another circumstance. And here's the man.
Well, I was still stuck on the goldfish, but all right, here I am. I'm surprised the goldfish lives this long as well. I'm surprised. How old? This house was 400 years old, though, right? This adobe structure.
I don't know about this one, but in the shed scene, there was a house next to it that you see. That's north of the fountain. That one's really old. And Jim, if you remember, we looked at that one to shoot in that one.
Right.
But it was just too tight. So plus we could not remove a window or add a wall. So this one, it worked out really well. I think this one wasn't as old as that one north of the fountain. But it's still pretty old, and there was things we couldn't touch. We had to work around or build around.
But it was still the structures are, and correct me if I'm wrong, are they're mud and straw and sand and what else?
Yes. So they do adobe blocks, bricks, because there was really no wood. They'd bring the wood for the vigas from the mountains, but there wasn't, it wasn't that easy to get. So they make the adobe bricks out of just what you said, sand, mud, straw, and water. They season those, and then they start to build. Then what you have is a mud stucco, and that is mixing almost the same things, the mud with the straw and water, and you put it on the adobes to protect the adobes.
Right.
You have to maintain that. So when we went to do this, the small section of wall that you're seeing in this picture right now, where the window, where you're going to change that out, the people at Los Golondrinas showed us where they could make their stucco or their mud finish. So we got to use the same exact mud. And if you look at the match was so perfect. It just worked out so beautifully. And for example, as you're seeing, the floors are dirt floors. And in the olden times, they would sometimes mix animal blood in that dirt to stabilize the floor. So it's very interesting, all the construction you're looking at.
It's amazing how it all matches. You'd never know that there was anything new there.
Right.
I had such a good time doing this stuff that I thought, I mean, it was, you do get into the character, become the character, whatever. But how therapeutic it was to be there. Yeah, I really had a good time. A really good time.
And of course, you taking apart a window, there's a lot of thought and process that goes into that we have to build it a certain way so you can take it apart and it comes apart. And then between special effects and props and construction, it's a thing. It's time consuming and it's a process.
People
People of a certain type.
He's very discreet.
Well, he'd have to be.
This is such a fun scene. I will reveal something here. This was not originally written for this particular character, Steve Sobachek, played by Stephen Ogg. We actually had another character in mind for this scene, and I am so glad it worked out the way it did, because Stephen Ogg is he's hilarious. He's very funny. He plays so well off of Bob and Ray.
I thought I was going to a law office.
Trina, how would you define your job?
Oh. Well, let's see. Besides being like the on-set mom, basically, I feel like I'm very much a mom to everybody. But I kind of help all the decision processes. I take all the, say for instance, a prop. I'll get all the information about the prop, and then I will take it to the director and the writer and Peter, and we'll figure out exactly which prop we're going to use. Obviously, and any feedback with any of those items. And this is for every department, art department, wardrobe, everything is thought about on this show. Everything down to the pen that someone uses. We definitely
Everybody's got something.
Try to think about everything and make sure that everything works and fits to the character and fits the scene. So that takes a lot of decisions and a lot of back and forth. And I think that I kind of help facilitate that.
She does. I mean, I have to say, we go to Trina, like we get down to the wire, especially on things like graphics or something that we need a decision. And we'll call Trina and say, get us this decision now.
Help me.
And that's what she does. And especially because she's right there with the director or Melissa or, and so she's very important for our department. She's very important. So
thank you.
It's because you guys are out there working while I've got my feet up in Burbank.
Yeah,
drinking a soda.
Getting a massage.
That's right.
Yes.
Getting a massage. Eating a cheese sandwich.
Right. You should tell them though that the writers' room has dart guns and Nerf toys, and which it does. That is not.
I've been there. I've seen it.
There are a lot of toys in the writers' room. It's a little bit less lethal than it was on Breaking Bad, where there were some injuries caused by projectiles. It may be the difference between Vince and me versus just Vince being the sole leader. I don't know.
Well, pacifism is appreciated, Peter.
So, Peter, you talked about how the casting in this scene had changed. I think we shot the episode originally in May, maybe. It was either May or June. And then I went back to New York. We were waiting on the casting, and finally September rolled around and the casting was complete. And this scene was shot in September, and I was on another job. So Tom Schnauz directed this scene, and it's funny because he directed a scene in the previous season that I directed. Because Giancarlo was not available in that season, and it had to be delayed, and I was no longer available when it was shot later on. So that happens a lot in the business, and it's always great to know that you have a director stepping in for you who is gonna, just bring. Well, this is a perfect example of this scene. It's on the page. It was. I don't know. In this episode, it's a massive, massive scene, and it's really it's incredibly important, setting the stage for what's to come, and it's a real character piece as well. And Tom just, he's just amazing. So I after what happened last season, I was not worried at all. I communicated with him some thoughts, and I just thought it's going to be great, and it was.
Obviously, much rather have you direct every single scene in your episode. It's just this. It's just the way sometimes these scheduling things work out.
You're saying you don't want Tom to do anything? Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't want Tom to do anything. He should just sit there and look pretty.
Yeah, well, that's a job for him.
He's the little prince, no question.
The little prince.
What is it?
And we don't know what that smile was. I remember there was actually a little bit more dialogue at the end of that, or the original script. And I think it was Bob or Ray said, maybe she doesn't need to say anything. And boy, they were absolutely right to cut that.
Got a minute? Sure.
I love this whole, this scene and the way Dennis plays it, the way you have Dennis playing it and the way Ray plays it. Because Schweikert really is trying to be a good boss here and not say anything that's going to make Kim feel too bad, and then she forces the issue, and it's just really an interesting scene.
A break? Actually, a pair of
Jim. What's the when you sit down in the morning when you're starting a new scene? What's the first thing you do? How do you work with the actors? Do you have them read the scene without moving? Do you give them ideas for blocking? How do you work?
I usually come up with a couple starting ideas for blocking, but I also don't like to give too much because I like people to just find, what happens. I try to read the words just before we do anything, which can be very difficult because some actors will do that and others will start blocking and start acting. I say, okay, just let's stay right here. No acting, read the words. Because I think it's always good to just get them out and then you go from there. So we read the words, we play with the blocking, and we talk and we get set up and we come back. There's always a lot, there's always a lot of choices to be made. And, that's one of the fun things about working with this cast is that no one's shy about saying ideas. The collaboration is always really a great back and forth. And there's also usually like 3 or 4 places in the scene where where a turn might happen. I might say, it's here where that happens. And Ray or Jonathan might say, no. I think it's later. Let's try it later. And that's the beauty of the process, I think, is to just be able to play a little bit.
Well, Jim, I'm going to interrupt you because I think that, with the actors you're working with here, they're going to come to the set and everybody's going to know their lines. And when a director says, let's run the lines, you said read the lines. I say, in this case, run the lines. I think it's very important that you listen to your director. That's a simple direction, but it says run the lines. Run the lines. Hear the words one time. It makes me crazy when actors interrupt when you just were told to run the lines. Run the lines. Let's see where we are. All the creativity or whatever you bring to it, to me, should come later. I think it's important that the director has the floor, and the simplicity of saying run the lines is something you should pay attention to. Anyway, that's all I got to say.
Well, thank you for that, Jonathan. It's funny because oftentimes oftentimes actors who don't just run the lines and who want to do other things later on when we're shooting, they don't know the lines.
They don't know the lines. They don't know the words.
Yeah, exactly. So it's good to just start like that.
And I've seen it. I can't even. Yeah, I've done this for 54 years since I got my first paycheck, and 53 years actually, 54 coming up, if 2020 ever ends. But boy, I love this scene. I loved working with this. Anyway, look at this place. How can you not love working there? Oh my God.
It was great. It was really great. Jonathan, this was all you, man, for, what were there, 4 days, 5 days, walking up and down those dirt roads and standing in the sun and doing these, it was just, but it was great. It was great because we were there. There were no distractions, and the work was fantastic, as it shows.
And there were and that's just it. There weren't distractions, except distractions. Right on the other side of that fence, in back of Giancarlo, are maybe 25 goats, and you can never get a goat to shut up. And so we were acting in between whatever the goats had to say. It was great.
Which is good for me. I got some extra pauses in the cut.
Pretty good. And is that supposed to balance the scales? Make up for everything else you do?
I love this coming together of the two characters reluctantly.
I am what I am.
What is this place?
Call it a memorial.
And then there's a beautiful piece by Dave Porter that comes in around here that I think really deepens everything that's going on. It's really comes together beautifully.
So what are we doing?
Paula, how did you, so that fountain is something that we built.
We did build that. We have such a fantastic construction crew. They just, so Peter Lang is the welding supervisor, and he sort of can put anything together. He's super smart, super talented. So we, of course, are always in a rush. Just the one thing that happened though when we went on site, I think we started shooting this maybe on a Monday, if I remember, and we got up there early, and they had been up there filling it up on Sunday. We got there the next morning, and it was leaking, and there was a little bit of a panic, but of course they figured it out. Just outstanding crew.
Are all those trees that are around there? Those are the cottonwoods, right? And they were sending out their flowers. I don't know what they're called, but the air sometimes when we did this scene was full of cotton floating around and coming across.
Yeah.
And there we go. We're out of there.
Beautiful episode. So proud of this all the episodes, and this one's really incredible. Great job. And so much fun to have all you guys on. Thank you so much for doing the show and doing the audio commentary.
Thank you, Peter.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, audience.